Let's go.
The stream is
Good
live.
morning and what's up, Profitable Stylist? Here we go this week. We have a special guest with us, Kellie, who's going to be talking with us about weft type extensions today. So, good morning, Kellie. As always, hello, Bernard. What's up?
Hello. Hey, Kellie. Hello,
Hi, good
Eddie.
morning.
So, Kellie, how long have you been doing hair? You are a
I
hairstylist, right?
Yes, I've been doing hair about 15 years.
15
Um,
years.
yeah,
Nice.
What,
pretty much right
what
out of high
city?
school.
What city? What state? Where are you located?
My salon is in Bel Air, Maryland. Very,
Mm,
very tiny little suburb of Baltimore.
okay.
Yeah, very small town.
15 years. Have you been at the same location for that long, or you did a few different salons?
I've been at a couple different salons, but I've been at my current salon for close to 10 years.
Okay.
Nice.
That's a
Yeah,
long time.
yeah, they're my family. I love them. Shameless
Yeah.
shout out to my salon.
Oh, absolutely. That's what it's about.
I love the fact that you guys have guitars in your salon.
Oh yeah, not the salon. My dad's recording studio. He's in a band, so shameless
Yeah.
plug for that too.
Yeah, that's really cool. So Kellie was telling us before we went live here that I was like, "Is that guitars on the back wall?"
I
So
can
your
prove it.
father, yeah, that look at that drum set,
That's a
everything,
cool setup,
keyboard.
man. That's a really
That
cool
is nice.
setup.
So your dad has a recording studio. I mean, you got a better setup than we do. That is, I don't think we've ever had somebody have a. I mean, what was his name? Just passed away.
Oh,
Giovanni.
Giovanni.
He had a really a pretty good setup. He kind of did a better background. So, yeah, I mean, it's nice. It's nice to have a recording studio. So, what does your dad do? He records other bands too, or is it just for himself?
It's just for fun. So he's in a band that plays on the weekends, and then he's a property manager by day. So
Oh,
you
okay.
know,
So let's talk about your wefts. I heard Eddie say you were going to talk about wefts. Of course,
Mhm.
I'm thinking you're going to talk about on stage wefts, but I want to be honest here. I don't want to just plug our product necessarily,
Yeah.
unless it's your most favorite thing in the world, then please do. But it's the profitable stylist. We want to talk about things that make stylists profitable. And
Yeah.
so I'm kind of curious about what you do that makes you the most money. What would
So
that
I definitely do on stage wefts. I do dimensional color. I've dabbled with the sew-in hand tie method. I'll be honest, I did not get into hair to learn how to sew.
right? That's
Uh,
how I felt.
yeah, they take
Right.
forever. They're very tedious, which I'm type A. I'm not really against tedious, but I love that the hair is great. They're easy to get in. And I've converted multiple people that were wearing hand tied to the on stage method that like it better. Um,
Nice.
yeah, I've had a couple people now that I twisted their arm a little bit and got them kind of on board with the on stage thing, and pretty unanimously have told me they're more comfortable.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Now I'm not an extension wearer, so I don't have a lot to compare.
That's
Um,
all your hair.
that's all. Yeah, this is
That's cool.
all
That's a
That's a
mine.
lot.
lot of hair.
You got a
It's
lot of hair.
yeah. I would love to wear extensions just to promote it, but I honestly don't think I can put that much hair in my head.
You don't need any more hair on your head. Right. You have to thin your hair out just to add extensions for thickness. So
Yeah.
so you're saying that the on stage beaded flat weft
Hmm.
is more comfortable than most people's hand tied wefts. We just started running into. I'm starting to understand the transition problem. I've had a few hairdressers like our weft want to start using it, and then the challenge is, in general, wefts are reusable.
Yep.
So most clients are like, I'm already in extensions. I've still got life on this hair. I don't care how much better, more comfortable, less damaging. I don't care what you say. I want to get my money's worth out of this hair on my head. Do you deal with that challenge sometimes? How do
I
you get them
I
over
have.
that?
So I try to be very respectful of people's money, and I like to put that up front that like I understand that switching hair is a brand new investment.
Right.
But usually the people that come to me are coming to me because the hand tie is causing damage. And I had one person in particular where she would lose a bead and it would create a brand new bald spot in her head. And her hair was really, really fine and just wasn't I don't know enough about the sew-in to say if it's stylist or method or what, and I'm never going to talk bad.
I love where you're going with that. I love where you're going with that. And just to not be confusing to our audience, you said the word bead, and it's the right word to use. But let's kind of cover that. Some people call them links, some call them beads, some call them rings. But we all know what you're talking about. And we use a bead for our technique also, so that sometimes can get confusing. And she did not mean when one of our beads fall out that they have a bald spot. That is
the attachment area for the sew-in.
so
yeah, and they're significantly larger than what's on your bead. It's significantly more hair in it.
Eddie, Ken just asked RJ and I yesterday, how large are the most common beads out there? I said, we're going to Mariah's looking it up today. I don't know what the millimeter is, but we're looking at the size of it. Is it? No. The average bead out there.
Yeah. 3 millimeters is the average smaller size bead.
And what is ours?
Like 3 to 5.
1.5 for the strands and 2 for the wefts.
Okay.
So we're a full millimeter smaller. And when you put, that doesn't sound like a lot by the numbers, but when you physically look at a 3 millimeter small bead and then, you put one of ours next to it, it looks twice the size.
Right. Yeah. And that is a big part of the problem is the large beads. And so RJ just walked in the room here and was showing me that Bellamy has a 3.2 and 3.4 millimeter bead. Hotheads 5 millimeters.
Yeah.
Woo!
That 3 millimeter, that's what I'm saying. That 3 millimeter is considered very small by the average industry standards.
Donabella, 3.5 millimeter, Babe, 3.5 millimeter, Covey, 4.5 and 4 millimeter. Dreamcatchers has a 2.7, a 3.2, and a 3.7. Aqua Hair, 5 millimeter bead.
Yeah.
Vision Hair has 4, 4.5, and 5. And Jay-Z Styles, I think that's a 2 millimeter. So that's one of the small.
Put it in perspective like this, Bernard. Look at your pinky, and then look at your thumbnail, and that's so your pinky is a 3 millimeter bead, basically. Your thumb is that's about a 3 millimeter size.
A thumb, right? Not a thumb.
The thumb is like 5.
Holy cow!
That's how much real estate you're taking up in the hair on the head.
So I wanted
a lot of room.
I like that you said you don't have a lot of experience with the sew-in, and I wanted to mention sew-in. You pull that hair through a bead, a ring, a link, or whatever. And you push it right up against the scalp and squeeze it, and then another one, I don't know, inch or 2 inches apart. Some people put them right together, but most people string some string between the beads. So if they put the beads too far apart, they have string in between it. They can sew the weft in also. So yeah, you're putting that so close to the head, you're causing tension, and then sewing the weft to those beads, causing more tension. And usually there's so few anchor points that you're right. If a bead comes out, it comes out with the client's hair and a big chunk of it because they're big beads.
Yeah.
And they end up with a bald spot.
And they even they're pulling the hair so it makes like a V coming into you can see the tension when you put it in. When I did play around with it, I had a hard time wrapping my head around how much hair you're supposed to put in it. And I don't know if it's just, I'm so used to your guys' method. And before that, I did keratin bonds for years. So, I don't know if I'm just used to such minimal hair, but it felt really uncomfortable for me personally. I see them all the time. I'm really good at taking them out. I can get them out really quickly.
Switching them all over.
Yeah. It's been interesting to talk to the ones that I've switched over. And since I switched a couple people over, that switch gets easier and easier because I can tell people about the ones that have switched and give them their honest feedback. So it's not just what I'm telling them that I see, you know what I mean? It's coming from a client as well that can honestly say they'll never go back to a sewing method.
So as far as the switch over for you, damage is the big selling point for you because even if their hair has still got a lot of life on it and kind of new, you're like, you don't want the bald spots that I'm seeing on so many clients. So switch over. It's worth it. It's more comfortable. You're going to like it more. That's good.
Mhm.
I like what you said right before we went live. You said I think that a day doesn't go by that I don't touch wefted extensions. So how much, how many, how often, how much hair extensions are you doing? How often?
So I have probably at least one person a day. I've had up to 3 or 4 in a day before,
Wow.
where my whole day is just extensions, pop those bad boys out, throw in some color and move them right back up.
Right.
And I love how quick they are. It's
Tell me about
it's almost like doing an add-on service. Like,
yeah.
it's
How quick is it in your words?
I can get 3 rows in somebody's hair within a half an hour, maybe 45 minutes max.
Nice.
That's with the on-stage extensions. I know we say it all the time, but we're the lead educators, so people they think we're selling. You're doing it. You're actually doing it behind the chair every day, sometimes multiple, and that's the only reason you can actually do 3 in a day, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, back in the old, you couldn't have done it so fast. You broke up a little bit there for me. I don't know if other people heard you, but it sounded like you said it's so fast.
Yeah.
Is that right?
It's so fast.
So you couldn't have done 3. You can, but it's a long day. Keratin bonds. If you did a full head of keratin bonds.
If you start at 2:00 in the morning and you end at midnight, you could probably do 3 in a day.
I always felt just from my energy level, I needed 1 in a day, and that was enough. I was seeing cross-eyed after that.
Before a hair show, I had done one time in the past. I did 3 heads in one day. I mean, that's when I was young and full of energy working out, and it was a long day, and I was kind of fast, but I would still take 2.5, 3 hours to do one set. So it was at least a 9-hour day of extensions, not talking about stopping to go to the bathroom, get something to drink, eat some food, maybe 2 meals during that whole
eat lunch at work. Way to go.
Yeah, right.
I got to get something. Yeah, I was always a stickler about eating. I did definitely schedule my lunch out. Oh, I know most hairdressers don't, but I did. I definitely did.
It's
so
smart.
Yeah, I know.
Did you always know you were going to do hair extensions? What started you off in that?
That's a good question. How'd you get into it?
So I was interested in it because my mom wore keratin bonds way back when people really just got into keratin bonds. I think it was like Great Lengths, and it was like the only game in town was Great Lengths.
That's what I started with, right?
Yeah. And I was in high school, and I was a little directionless, but interested in hair, and just knowing that was an option was really appealing. And I like the instant gratification idea of, like, you put someone in someone's hair and boom, you have hair on your head, and you did before. I'm a millennial, so instant gratification is really big for me. So when
nobody else, only for you.
Yeah, only millennials.
Well, really anyone, but like
no.
I like things I like a result, and I want it instant, and I want it now. And so that was.
How old are you when you started doing hair?
19.
And
Nice.
did you do extensions right away, or did you do just regular hair for a bit before you got into them?
I did regular hair for probably 4, maybe 5 years. I worked in a couple salons that were not really interested in backing it up because I would have been the only one. And I was young, so they liked the idea of having someone senior that could, step in and be that mentor, and never having that option.
Right.
So when I started at Coco Lee and interviewed, one of the first things I actually told them was, I want to certify in extensions. Like, I want this as part of my business. How do we make this happen? And
were they already doing them?
Or
did they bring it in because of you?
Nicole was doing it a little bit, but she brought in somebody from She and certified a few of us, and which was really cool. So we did that for a while.
Was it a lady?
Yes.
Kathy? Redhead? Maybe?
I think her name was Ashley.
Oh, okay.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Like probably 10 years ago, long ago.
Okay.
but we worked with She for a while, and then the Wefts were becoming a thing, and we were sort of kind of maybe talking about learning hand tie. And I don't know
Right.
the behind the scenes on how it came to our salon. I just know that Nicole and I were really, really big into it. And you actually came to our salon, Bernard, and certified us right before the pandemic.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, so I think you certified us, and the world shut down like a month later.
Yeah, and that's when our online classes started to take off because
Yeah.
nobody was traveling, nobody would invite you. Nobody, yeah, we did a few classes in our salon because down south we didn't lock down as tight as most of the rest of the world did, or the rest of the country. So we kind of opened up a little sooner, so people started coming down here. And I remember they would get out of their Ubers with their mask on, look around, nobody had them on, and they take them off. They're like, "We don't have to wear them." Oh God, this is so good.
Yeah.
Said, you can wear it, but I'm not gonna, and that's why I'm doing it here. So the education. I remembered the name of your salon, Coco Lee. It's just so cool of a name. I'm sorry, it's so hard for me to remember all the names, all the faces, but the salon name stuck out to me.
Yeah.
How did you guys? That was like we were just getting started with those.
I want to say we had to have been one of your first salons to have people certifying.
Yeah, you might have been one of the first salons, because we sold just the individual strands, beaded strands, for about, I'm going to guess, a year and a half before we brought the wefts on.
Yeah.
And so then the wefts,
we weren't interested in them because we were doing the keratin bonds, and it just, and we had a healthy enough business that it didn't feel like a rush, like we need to do this, like we were interested, but it wasn't. It was like, oh, we can do it, and it kind of got pushed off. But the Wefts were kind of game changing for us.
Why? I was going to say why, but you tell me why.
Yeah, why?
For one, they're just so fast. They were so much easier to sell than talking someone into doing keratin bonds and having to sit there for a few hours and all that home maintenance and coming back to make sure that they're, doing what they're supposed to do, with the caveat of, if XYZ happens, by the way, we've taken them all out and you got to replace them. That's kind of a hard sell.
That was the biggest downside for me with keratin bonds. And I did them for years and sold the heck out of them. But the fact that if everything is done well, everything's done well, 3 to 6 months, so let's say you go 4 months, 4 months. I don't think you should go over 4 months, but you wear them for 3.5, 4 months. When you take them out, it all goes in the trash, and that hair is still in pretty good shape because it's high quality hair. It should be able to be used again, and you just can't. And that's the sad thing about the technique. But that's the world. I mean, the computers we're on right now are always upgrading and getting better. You can have a computer 3 or 4 years old and it looks brand new. It doesn't mean it still works well. And so that's kind of, keratin's kind of having a little bit of a comeback too. Some people are doing little hybrid methods where they're putting a few keratin bonds on the side.
That's what I do now with them.
Okay.
So how does that look like? Well, like, how do you combine them? How do you see it working?
I get people that feel like, and you guys have probably seen this, like if they either have like that high recession or the bang they never intended to have. And this is where, for me, keratin bonds really shine as opposed to the beaded strands, because you can make them so small and flat.
I agree.
I put them in places that you wouldn't typically put an extension. So I'll do like a diagonal back parting right in this vicinity, right near the recession.
Yeah.
So there's enough hair hanging down to attach it and just visually fill in that gap.
Right.
And order a length that's going to match my wefts, and then I can cut it to be an angle or let it all be one length, and then they don't feel gappy, for lack of better word.
No, that's great. I like what you're saying. There's still a time and place for keratin that nothing else can compare to. You're right. A K-tip bond, a keratin bond. Of course, we sell she hair keratin bonds and love them. And you're right. The customizability, that's a long word and it might be made up, but the customizability where you can make a half bun, a fourth of a bun, a third of a, and you can go so tiny. And like you said,
Mhm.
put them right, you can put them straight across the front of the bangs and make bangs. We have that as a training video and at our Profitable Stylist Academy site. Eddie came in town and we did a whole bunch of like different types of repairs, filling in the side, doing bangs, highlights, lowlights.
Mhm.
And it is difficult to beat a keratin bond for customizing the side, because you're right, with the beaded strands, it's two, a single plus density and a double density.
Yep.
And that's all your variety. It's all most people need, so it works most of the time. But let me mention a little trick. I taught my son in the salon the other day. He was putting a weft in, and he needed to put some low lights in there. I think it was a bit of a highlight, but it were both browns. One was just a little lighter brown. And when we were down low, I said, put your weft in, and then right above it, put a row of highlights right above that weft. And then he put the next row in. I said, let's do it again. Then he got to the top, and he was putting that top weft in, sneaking it as high as you could possibly do it without anybody seeing it through her hair, because she had very short hair and we wanted to really nullify as much of her hair as possible. And then after he did it, he goes, Dad, I can't get the highlights above this. They're going to be seen. I said, put them on the weft. And he said, wait a minute. I said, yeah, then when you remove the weft in a few weeks and put it back in, those will stay in. So you could do that with the keratin bonds too. You could put the keratin bond right on the weft, and then they are reusable.
Right.
If you want to use them as a highlight or a low light or change the color at all. Now, obviously you're putting them in places way up high where you're not putting the weft, so I get it. But yeah, highlighting or low lighting the weft with the beaded strands or the keratin strands. So my recommendation for the average full head, I've come a long way since your class. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry you guys had to deal with the old me. I mean, I pride myself in always trying to get better and do better and teach better classes. And I always encourage people to come back as refreshers for free. Like I'll be in Dallas teaching a class September 13th, Friday the 13th. Easy to remember. And anybody that's ever taken a class before is welcome to come for free as a refresher. And one of my kind of go-to strategies these days is putting a double density weft down low, single plus density above that, and then a pack of strands in between the wefts on the sides, maybe a few above, in the middle, and below, depending on how the part is and how much hair you need on one side. Maybe you put 20 on one side and 5 on the other. But using a pack of strands just to kind of pull it all together to kind of do what you're saying.
Yeah.
Sometimes to get those bangs to fit in there, or you need a pack to add a highlight or a low light all the way around. So I do kind of like mixing the two, whether it's K-tips, beaded strands, whatever. But still, all of those techniques we just talked about are away from the scalp a little bit, so there's no tension or damage if done correctly.
Yeah, I love them. And the hair that, that natural shed that comes out is pretty minimal. Especially people that I have coming in at that 6-week mark, which is my preferred maintenance level. I do have people that stretch it to 8 and it's fine. The hair still looks great and their hair's fine, but I like that 6 week just because of the weight and the tension.
Yeah. I like 6 weeks also. That's what I recommend.
Sweet spot. Yeah.
So some people say they hear the 6 weeks and they're like, oh, but I can get longer out of other techniques. Do you have anything to say about that? I have a lot to say about it, but I'm gonna let you guys go first.
I agree. I think every technique should be moved up by 6 weeks.
Okay. Not K-tips.
Well, yeah, not K-tips, but just because of the weight, I feel like your hair is not designed to hold that extra weight. So the closer to the scalp it is, the better it is for the hair, the safer it is to keep your hair healthy. So I'm a big believer in the 6 week maintenance.
What technically is going on? You've hit on some of those. You've hit on some of the specifics about it. Do you want to go into more detail about what happens? Why what is different in 6 weeks than 6 weeks ago?
Well, for one, you're further out from the head and you've got that natural shed. So it's a lot less hair actually holding the weight of the extension.
That's right. Describe that a little more, because that's exactly why. For somebody who doesn't really understand what you're saying there, break that down a little bit more.
So when you first put it in the bead and you have all that nice healthy hair right near the scalp, and you're a little bit off the scalp, but you're close enough,
Right. Right.
um every strand of hair is in that different stage of an active growth, a rest, and a shed.
That's right.
And so each strand that sheds, you might not visually see it till that extension comes out, but that's just less and less hair for that bead to be attached to, or that K-tip, or that I-tip, whatever you're putting there.
Perfect. Well said.
It has to do with gravity. Everybody understands how water works. The deeper you go into the ocean, the more pressure, and then things like crush, and then burst eventually, right? So every quarter inch you grow away from the scalp is another level of gravitational pull, which we cannot control. That's just life. So as you're describing, Kelly, as you're starting to shed, as you're starting to lose hair, you don't have as many hairs holding on to that width of a section, because whether you're using a tape, whether you're using a weft, whether you're using a track, whatever you're doing, you're taking up a larger amount of real estate on the head than an individual strand. So, and then even with individual strands, you got to be careful as well, but especially with bigger sections, as you start to shed, you start to lose those hairs, you're losing that support. And you grow about a half an inch a month, every month on average, everybody grows their hair about a half an inch a month. So by 6 weeks, you're almost a full inch away from the head. So you don't have the skull, you don't have your scalp supporting that anymore. It's in free fall, it's in free hang. That is a lot. And then you go to pull it in a ponytail, you go to, put a round brush through it, a flat iron through it, or some kind of tool through it. You are just amplifying the amount of pull and tension that's occurring, and that's something that Bernard and I talk about a lot, is that traction alopecia. There's different forms of it. And that is definitely a major issue. It's definitely a major issue. So that's a great description that you gave.
Thank you.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I was trying to reposition my camera so I could relax, and I totally lost my train of thought.
You were also gonna talk about the 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, what's the difference between 6 weeks and 6 weeks ago?
So she had earlier said, I don't know if it was the techniques problem or the client. And I always go back to my 3-legged stool. It could be any of those things. It could be the technique, which I wanted to harp on just a little bit. A lot of these other techniques, like all these bead sizes I just read off, I think that some people, just a 3-legged stool real quick, it could be the hairdresser, it could be the client, it could be the technique. Any one of those 3 things, or any 2, then things are falling apart. Oh, now I see the lights flashing. I see what you're talking about with the auto. I need to stay real still. but I think that some people might be thinking, because it kind of hit me, we talked about bead size. Some people might be thinking that bigger bead is necessary to hold enough weight or enough hair to support the weight of whatever's going in. And maybe our smaller beads could be holding less hair, so maybe more damaging. I've got the answer to that, but you guys want to touch on that a little bit? You go first.
I'll let you take it first, Kelly.
There you go.
Okay,
let our guests take it first.
I got a lot of thoughts on that, because my issue with the big bead is how far away you have to pull the hair. So I feel like it's being pinched.
So when you do a big bead, you're saying you got to pull hair from more than right here where the bead.
It's not right in front of the bead. It's in front of the bead and off to the side. So like when you look at them, they're making like a V, like this.
Yeah.
And I feel like that puts tension on the outside of it.
That's true.
That is very true. And that is an issue. Another issue is that a lot of people don't think about with the larger beads, the wefts themselves, the tracks that the wefts are attached to, and the amount of hair that's attached to themselves. It's in some cases it's doubled, in some cases it's tripled. So physically speaking, the weft itself, the track itself, is thick.
Yeah.
And so you need a larger amount of hair to support that weight, which in turn forces you to require a larger bead to support holding that larger amount of hair. It's just a snowball effect of effect, like of circumstances, cause and effects. So with the on stage in particular, the track itself on the weft of the on stage is thinner, and there are more positions available to apply more beads, and you can space them out more evenly across. So it's really more than the game of you're distributing the gravity a lot more evenly across the surface rather than focusing on a few anchor points to support all that gravity, all that tension.
And our beads were designed for our weft. Do you know, I'm pretty sure none of the other wefts out there were the beads designed to be used with their weft. What they're doing is they're taking beads out of the eye-tip world. Oh, it went dark on me. They're taking beads out of the eye-tip world. So all of these other beads were designed to hold eye tips in. And eye tips not only have the hair coming through the bead, they got this big round thing stuck in there also. So they had to have room for an eye plus hair to fit in there. And so now they're repurposing beads, kind of hodgepodge and two techniques together, taking the eye tip beads, which often have silicone in the bead, which is no good either. I know some hairdressers think that the silicone is better. It was better than what came before it, but that's a whole nother conversation of why our beads are the way they are and why they work so well. But if you take away the eye, now you have to do what Kellie was saying. You can't just put the hair that's in front of the bead in the section because we don't have the eye in there. So to fill that bead up with hair, they go wide and get this big giants, and they go deep and wide and get way too much hair in there. And then I like what you said, Eddie. Similarly, we use a smaller bead with just enough hair in each bead, but we put them closer together and have more anchor points. Do you know, I actually saw a video one time where a girl was, I don't think they realized what they're saying, but she was talking about her technique. And she said, what I like about this technique is we have very few beads. So there are very few anchor points. So a lot less places to have problems. And I thought, but every single one of those places is going to be a problem. You might only have 3 beads, one here, one there, but all 3 are going to be bald spots soon. So when she said it like that, it sounded so smooth when it was said. And I thought, that's not right.
You just made me think of something. Do you know why the beads started becoming popular with the sew-ins, where the beads started becoming anchor points?
Are you asking me or Kellie?
Both of yous.
Anybody.
Well, you probably do know the answer, so I'll say to you, Kellie, then. Here's a little pop quiz.
I really don't, because when I think of traditional sewing, I think of sewing it to braids.
Right.
That's the right answer. Precisely. Wefts used to be glued in first.
Yes.
And you would literally glue a weft on. You would take a clean section across, and you would literally glue the weft right onto that section of hair. And then when the sew-in started getting popular, you would take a cornrow horizontally across the section, and you would sew that weft, and that was to alleviate the need to glue.
And a lot of people still do that technique. Many
do.
People, are still sewing and gluing. And gluing wefts in is a very fast way to get hair on a person's head for video shoots, photo shoots. You're going to do a runway shoot. You're going to put hair on if one hairdresser is going to put hair on 6 or 7 models, gluing hair extension wefts in it and using cheap hair is a great idea for the day, for the hour, for the 2 or 3 hours. And they can even wear it for a few days or a week. But removing that hair quickly is not so easy, but that's not the challenge. The challenge is getting a lot of hair on a lot of models really fast, like a Victoria's Secret runway shoot. We've got 12, 15 models and 2 or 3 hairdressers. We're going to glue wefts in really quick until the onstage wefts came out, because I think you might be able to put an onstage weft in faster than the glue dries for a weft that's glued in.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. I got you.
Because gluing them in, a lot of people made fun of it back in the 90s, and I always supported it. I'm like, there's a time and place for almost every technique that has been done in the past. You know, pulling hair through a cap for a highlight. I still think there's a time and place for it. But some people would say, I would never touch a cap, you know, for
those people.
You're one of those people.
Most hairdressers say that, right?
It's hilarious, but you know, the cap is, I had off topic real quick, but it's starting to get popularized again. So everything old becomes new.
Right.
That's the whole thing. And with the resurgence of the hand tie technique in the wefts, it really is what modern, or it brought an old technique of weft type extensions and modernized it and made it new again and exciting for a new generation of clientele to wear it. So if you think about it that way, 15 years ago when you started, it kind of had gone away for a little while. It wasn't the thing to do. Bonds were, you know, and now fast forward 15 years and now you're in this renaissance of wefts, you know, and now you're using your creativity to make them into a hybrid and combine strands with wefts. Whereas before, I'm not going to say it was a taboo, but it was just, you just didn't think about doing that. You did one thing and that was the one thing you did, and you better do it good. You know, and it better fit.
Yeah, Kelly. So if I met you at a party and we're just introducing ourselves for the first time, who do you say you are? What do you do for a living? How do you introduce yourself? Hey, Kelly, what do you do for a living?
I am a master stylist.
Okay. I love that, because you can give yourself any title you want. Master this, master that. So master stylist. And then when people go, what does that mean? What does that mean? What do you do?
I specialize in extensions, dimensional color, and I carry a senior cosmetology license.
So now when they start fixing their hair because you just said that to them and they're
yeah, it always happens, right? Well, don't look at my hair.
That's what I tell people, not to look at mine. I don't have time to do my own.
Kelly's going on a bachelorette party tomorrow. She took off today because tomorrow she leaves with some friends for the weekend.
Yeah.
The weekend. This is not a one-night bachelorette party. It's a whole weekend bachelorette party. This may be the last time we see Kelly alive.
I hope not.
So make sure you book your appointment. Yeah.
Yeah. Be good.
We will. It's a low-key bunch of girls. My best friend works in the salon with me, so it'll be a good time.
So what else about hair extensions did you think we might talk about today that we might not have brought up yet? Is there anything that you wanted to bring up that we didn't bring up?
I've gotten really into, because I do dimensional color, kind of mixing and matching weft colors as opposed to actually coloring the weft.
Tell me about that. What do you mean?
So I got the idea from taking out hand-tied wefts. You know, because they put like 4 wefts in a row.
Could we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah.
They put them all on one row, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is a commercial break, guys. I'm so sorry, because this makes me so freaking mad. This is lazy, pure lazy, or I'm going to use a real strong word and say, or just stupidity. I think might be ignorance, which just means they don't know. I think a lot of people don't know that they should spread the hair out on the head, just like our hair actually is on our head. And so I just started seeing this, and I didn't understand where it was coming from, but it seems like almost, not everybody, but like 90% of people that do these hand-tied wefts, they do one row of their beaded track or whatever, and then they sew a weft, a second weft, a third weft, a 4th weft. What's the most wefts you've seen on one row?
5 or 6, yeah.
7. So I got 7. So yeah. And I think that they start building their thickness from there, and they don't realize, like, put one above or below. I think what it is people don't want to go through the effort and the time to create another track or two.
I think it's a limitation that you can't cut them to customize them.
Yeah, and they're really thin. Like, you can almost see through them. Like, even the single plus, I feel like, is thicker than one of the hand.
Oh, yeah, it truly is.
Oh, an onstage single plus. Yeah.
You think that they put more on one row because they're so thin?
I think that's part of it.
It is. Why don't they ever do a second or a third row anywhere?
I've seen it. I don't see it a lot, but I have.
Some. Yeah. So I cut you off. I'm gonna let you get back to your story. Sorry.
No, it's okay. But I'm going with it. One thing that I saw that I actually found interesting was seeing multiple colored wefts
No, that's a
in
good
that
idea.
row.
Yes.
And I thought that was kind of genius.
Yep.
And one stage has a couple multi-dimensional colors,
Right.
or you can color it yourself and get the shadow root or what you need.
Yep.
But I had a customer who I've been playing around with on because she likes to change up her hair. She changes up her extensions. And so she's kind of put me in a position to be a little experimental. And
Yeah.
instead of coloring the wefts, I've been layering colors in different rows. So kind of like what you were saying earlier by adding highlights with individual strands, I'm doing
Yeah.
it with full wefts, where I'll
Wow.
put like a highlight, like a lighter color on top, sandwich a darker one in the middle, and then put a light underneath. And it kind of works with my dimensional color to keep that ribbon going without having to color extensions, because I find it unpredictable. It makes me a little nervous to know my client spent a bunch of money on that hair, and then I have to formulate color and pray the hair's not too porous and go the way I want it to go exactly.
Right. I agree.
So layering these colors like that has given a really beautiful effect, and it's something I've only just recently started playing around with, but I'm really loving that takeaway from the hand-tied wefts from switching people over. It's been kind of a fun experiment, and it's quick and it just flows with my color still.
And it's years ago, I guess the most generic term for a highlight that didn't come from the scalp and it was just kind of in there would be like a peekaboo highlight.
Mm-hmm.
We had a term called undercurrent at one time. And I remember being on stage in New York and taking my, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10 or 12-year-old daughter to the hair show with me. And of course, she wanted probably pink at the time. Who knows? Maybe it was a rainbow. But I just parted her hair off all the way around, and it was keratin bonds at the time, and just put one single row right next to each other, all one solid color that was not her color. Her color was brown, and we did pink or we did blonde or we did whatever. Then you'd let her hair down, and you really can't imagine what that's going to look like until you just do it. You get bold hair show and who cares, and you think it's going to be wilder than it is, and it's just basic highlights. It's crazy how they just peek through the hair, kind of like highlights. And so, yeah, that I got those kind of ideas too. And so one of the hairdressers, newest hairdresser in our salon right now, I said, hey, Angel, I want you to put beads and loops and all this extra class hair and hair that hair clients wore for a while, don't want it anymore. We got all this extra hair laying around. I said, let's get it all ready, and we're going to play. What'd you say?
That's what my station looks like. Just
yeah. We're going to play with it, practice with it. We're going to just put it on people for fun and tell them that it's for you to practice, but then you're going to take it out of their head. Unless they want to pay for it, they can keep it. So it'll be practice and play and advertisement and hopefully money making. But I said, but I'd like you to have one, like you stylists, put them on each other. And at the time, she was looking at them, trying to match her color because her hair was kind of long. And she's got just two big blonde chunks right here. The rest of her hair is kind of medium brown. And I said, she was looking at colors and being like, trying to get it to match, and none of them were matching right. I said, you don't have to match your hair. She said, what? I said, you're not going longer. You're just thickening your hair. You could add any one of these in there and it'll be dimensional. You could put the blonde in. She goes, oh, it would match my bangs. And so she's still wearing it till this day. And that was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. She had it taken out and put back in once. But putting that blonde weft, she had the what she calls a money piece there in the front, and then a blonde weft that's just poking and veiling out here and there. It looks like she has a chunky blonde highlight coming from somewhere under, but it's just one weft. It was so fast and easy. Put it in like 7 or 8, 10 minutes, depending on who put it in. One of my stylists could do it in 5 minutes. Another one can do it in 12 minutes, so still roughly 8 to 10 minutes. It's too fast and easy.
In our extension group, there was a question that was asked about hair color and hair extensions. So you mentioned about having to color the weft and worrying about porosity. And that's kind of how I answered the question a little bit in the group as well, too. What is some of the advice you could give somebody who needs to color the weft?
I like to air at least a level lighter and probably a level warmer than what my target is. I like to put a little bit of warmth in there because I feel like even those neutrals can get a little drab just because there's that blue in there. And I find they tend to pull dark. So I only do demi-permanents, and I always air light and air warm because I can turn that down. I can't relight.
It's easier to tone down than it is to lift up. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's good advice.
What do you do with application, with saturation and timing?
I eyeball the timing, honestly. I don't like to walk away from them because I've seen them pull really quick.
Don't go to lunch.
No.
Come back and have black hair.
The most I've ever had to let anything sit was like 15 minutes. And even that was teetering on long. You definitely got to watch your saturation, especially if you're doing those double densities, because it's more hair than you think. So they can get splotchy. I'll even take a comb, like if I'm shadow rooting, and brush it through a little. And because it's going underneath, I'm okay with like a deep shadow on them.
So you're saying you got to make sure you really saturate. You got to really get in there.
Yeah, big time. I'll even do both sides. I'll paint one side and then flip it over and paint the other.
Do you lay it over a piece of foil, or what kind of backdrop do you use, or do you hang the hair when you're doing it?
If I'm doing the roots, I usually put it on a cart with like a towel, or like a really tight foil, just something to paint on that, like an old towel that, my boss is not going to be mad about me destroying with hair color.
Goes with the territory.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Like
I like the towels because I can clip them, so I know they're not going to move, and I get that nice solid surface. And then there's color on it, so like as long as you can have an idea of where the color is, if you flip them, you've got a little bit of color already getting you started for that other side.
Interesting.
Yeah. Great advice. Great advice. So then, speaking of advice, what would be an advice you would give to somebody who is just starting out or did extensions before and, kind of fell off and is wanting to get back into it again? What kind of advice could you give somebody to get started with doing hair extensions?
If you work with somebody already doing it, assist, shadow, and listen to the dialogue for the consultation, because there is an art to selling it. Because you're not talking small dollars, and people are willing to spend it if they feel that it's worth their investment in time. And my other one would be to stay humble and keep getting education, because the industry moves. And I was that hard-headed teenager out of beauty school that was like too cool to assist and learn the hard way. And looking back, I wish I had assisted. I wish that I had been a little more real with myself and where I was, and to just be honest with where my skill set was at the time. And I think just being honest with yourself is important, because it's really easy to be like, I'm the best in the world, and I don't believe that exists.
No, it doesn't. That's great.
I think we've all been humbled, at some point, and when your britches get too big, you're going to be humbled again.
Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth?
That is the truth.
And then what about being profitable? What kind of advice would you have for somebody who has a rolling extension business? So like sometimes when people start doing extensions, they start getting their first half of clientele, and then they kind of get stuck and they don't know how to break through that little hump. Like, did you ever get to that point where you were doing extensions and you're like, I could be doing so many more, I just don't know why I can't schedule anymore, I can't do anymore, I can't something?
Yeah. It's okay to turn things down that you don't want to do.
That's good.
I think is what it is if your passion is not necessarily, say, hair cutting, like a 45-minute service, and you could get an extension in that 45-minute service, it's okay to down or move it to a smaller spot somewhere else that you're not going to fit anything else, like just being smart about how you handle your book and not letting people just book. Like I try to ask any of the receptionists in my salon. I am on my book like a hawk all the time, trying to keep the gaps strategic for big services.
But can't you just squeeze me in, Kellie? It's just the trim. It's just the trim.
No, I'm learning to say no. That's been hard. That's a really hard one for me, especially. I have a 2-year-old son, and he has taught me that it's okay to tell my clients no, because for me, I want to be enjoying these toddler years with him before he goes to school. So I only work 3 days a week, and I used to be the queen of, I'll stay late, I'll add an extra day, I'll do this, and make the hustle so much harder than it had to be. And just kind of shifting that priority to my family life has taught me to say no. And what I'm learning is my clients are okay with that.
3 days. Did I hear
Yeah.
3 days? That's
Yeah.
exciting. So we won't talk about how much the hair cost because this is a public channel. And but I would like to, if you don't mind, talk about how much extensions cost in your salon. How much are you getting for full heads of extensions?
So,
I know it's different.
Like as a service fee, right? Like what are you guys doing?
Yeah. So maintenance wise, I personally am charging a flat rate for maintenance unless you have more than 2 wefts, and then I raise my flat rate. Just because
how much is it?
I do a flat rate of 125, and then once we get above that, I get more like 175, 200 for a move up.
Nice.
And yeah, and and I just, any other service isn't included. So your color is on top of that number. If you get washed and blown out before they get up, which I recommend, it's not included in that number.
And if they just get them taken out and put back in, how long does that take you for 2 wefts?
For 2 wefts, like maybe a half an hour, since I have to reset them up.
Yeah,
I think it takes longer to put the beads back in than it does to install them onto the hair.
Yeah, I feel, which is one of the reasons why I recommend the wash and blowout, because I can throw them together or start throwing them together while they're being shampooed, and then whoever my shampoo person is can finish it while I am blow drying, and then they're not awkwardly sitting there while I'm putting these tiny beads back into their weft, because that really is probably the most work.
And what do you charge for a brand new person getting 2 wefts on average?
Like ballpark.
For what am I charging for brand new?
Brand new extension client. I know it's different depending on length and texture and all that, but your average client.
So my average client is probably doing one double density 18-inch with a single plus 18-inch, and that's usually around $1,250.
Okay.
Yeah.
$1,250. $1,250. Yep. Good.
Yeah, right around there.
And that takes you about an hour and a half.
Yeah, when for a brand new install, having to cut and blend and all the extra that goes with that new install, it's probably
I think that's
more than an hour and a half.
That's more than a doctor makes.
It's possible.
Oh, absolutely.
Some doctors, right? Absolutely. Some make more, some make less. I do know I went in for. I was actually flying back from a hair show, and I was having an earache, and I think the pressure of the cabin hurt me worse. And I went, before I even went home, I went straight to an instant care. And so I was talking about my ear, and I was at a hair show, and what he was asking what I did for a living for some reason. And I remember he turned around, and he's writing in a chart, and he goes, "What do hair extensions cost?" And I was like, "Oh, $1,200, $1,500." And he turns around. "And how long does that take you to do?" I said, "About an hour." And he said, "Depending on how much profit's in there, you might make more money than me." I said, "Now, I'm not doing it every hour of every day. Right. That's the goal, is to make more money than." I didn't tell him that, but right.
It's such a niche clientele too. I mean, you got to know your area and how to appeal to the people that want to or are willing to spend that.
You're right.
There's a very real niche to it, and I'm in a very small town. So people are very careful about how they spend their money, but we live right outside of a city. We're very close to DC. We've got a lot of government jobs. We've got a lot of people that need and want to look professional and almost find it to be a need. Or I have some women where they had COVID hair loss and it brought back a self-esteem issue, or little things like that that make it really worth it. That I feel like half of it, when you're talking just from a selling and business point of view, is trying to explain why it's worth the money to them, and not in a the hair is so great, or it's so fast and we can reuse the hair, but just on a human level, why it's worth it to them. That is not a dollars and cents level.
There's a product out there for everybody, and there's a price out there for everybody that's willing to pay it. They just have to feel the perceived value. They have to feel like it's going to do exactly like you said. It's going to make them feel good.
Yeah.
Much better than the money. Guys, the whole hour went by already. We got to end this thing. Thank you so much.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I got another appointment in a few minutes, so I've got her. You guys can stay on and talk all day if you want, but she's got a bachelor party
Yeah, right. You got to go get ready. You got to go to your meeting. I got my own call I got to get on. But look, Kellie, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. That was absolutely awesome. The hour went by in a flash.
What if somebody wanted you to do their hair extensions in what?
Yeah, how do they contact you?
What's the name, address?
My salon is called Coco Lee. We are in Bel Air, Maryland. Or you can find me on Instagram. My handle is Balayage by Kellie, and you can very easily find me there.
We'll put when we have that in the description. Your handle.
Good.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Leave a comment if you have any other questions for Kellie or for us, and we'll catch y'all next week.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.